There is a question philosophers have argued about for 2,500 years. If you replace every plank of a ship, one by one, is it still the same ship? In the mountain town of Veyra, they don't ask it about ships. They ask it about themselves. Because in Veyra, once a year, every resident is required by ancient custom to redraw the town map from memory. No copying, no reference, just what they remember. And every year, the maps disagree. Tonight's story isn't about a crime or a disappearance or a monster in the woods. It's about something quieter and maybe more unsettling. It's about a man who spent his whole life drawing the same town and discovered he had never drawn the same town twice. This is a story about memory, about identity, about whether the place you come from exists anywhere except inside you. Settle in. No one remembers when the mapping day tradition began in Veyra. The town archive holds maps going back 300 years, thousands of them, one per resident, per year, each rolled and tied with string, each labeled with a name and a date. The rule was simple. On the first morning of autumn, you sat alone, and you drew your town, the streets as you knew them, the houses as you remembered them, your world in your hand. Children drew their school enormous and the cemetery tiny. The baker drew the market square at the center of everything. The widow on the hill drew her late husband's workshop, a building that had burned down 20 years earlier, every single year, in perfect detail. No one corrected her. Because in Veyra there was a saying older than the archive itself. The town is not the stones. The town is what the stones mean. And for 300 years, nobody tested that saying. Until Aldrich Vane became the town's official cartographer and decided to find out which map was true. Aldrich was a man of precision. He had studied surveying in the capital. He owned instruments no one in Veyra had ever seen. Brass tools that measured angles to a fraction of a degree. And the mapping day tradition offended him. Thousands of maps, he argued, and all of them wrong. The baker's square was not the center of town. Geometrically, the center was a muddy goat pen behind the chapel. The widow's workshop did not exist. The children's school was, in fact, quite small. So Aldrich spent 3 years measuring every street, every wall, every well, and when he finished, he produced something Veyra had never possessed. One map. Exact. Objective. True. He hung it in the town hall and declared the tradition obsolete. Why should 300 people draw 300 flawed maps when one perfect map existed? The town council agreed. That autumn, for the first time in 3 centuries, mapping day was cancelled. And here is where the story turns. Because over the following year, people began to notice something strange. Not dramatic, just small absences. The baker realized he could no longer remember which corner of the square caught the morning sun. He had stopped paying attention because the map already knew. Neighbors argued about which house had stood on Miller's Lane before the flood, and instead of remembering together, they simply checked the wall of the town hall. The widow on the hill stopped walking to where the workshop had been. There was no longer any reason to remember. The map remembered for them. The philosopher Plato once worried that writing itself would do this to humanity, that the written word would give us the appearance of wisdom instead of wisdom itself, letting us outsource memory until we no longer truly knew anything. Veyra had done it with a map. They had traded 300 living towns, argued over, loved, misremembered, for one dead, perfect one. 4 winters later, the town hall burned. No one died, but the archive, 300 years of maps, was gone by morning, and with it, Aldrich's masterpiece, the one true map of Veyra, reduced to ash. The next day, the council came to Aldrich and asked him to redraw it. He had measured everything, after all. Surely he remembered. And Aldrich, the man of precision, the man of instruments, sat down with a blank page and found that he could not. He remembered numbers, angles, distances, but when he tried to assemble them, the town would not come together. He knew the length of Miller's Lane to the inch, but not what it felt like to walk it. He had measured Veyra so thoroughly that he had never actually seen it. It was the widow on the hill who saved the town's memory. She arrived at his door uninvited, with her own map, drawn secretly every autumn, tradition or no tradition. The workshop was on it, of course, the burned-down, impossible workshop. Aldrich pointed at it and said, "That building doesn't exist." And the widow said the line this whole story has been walking toward. "Neither does yesterday. Would you leave that off the map too?" That autumn, mapping day returned. But it changed. Now the maps were hung together in the open square. All of them, side by side. The baker's square-centered town next to the children's giant school, next to the widow's workshop, next to Aldrich's careful measurements, because Aldrich drew one too, every year until he died. His final map, they say, still hangs in Veyra. It is the strangest one in the collection. The streets are precise, but in the margin, in an old man's shaking hand, there is a single note. "Corrections welcome. I only measured it. You lived in it." The Ship of Theseus asks whether a thing remains itself when its parts are replaced. Veyra's answer is stranger and maybe truer. A town, a person, a life, is not its parts at all. It is not the stones, or the planks, or the facts. It is the ongoing act of remembering, together, imperfectly. The moment you stop redrawing the map is the moment the town truly disappears. So here's the question I'll leave you with tonight. If someone erased every record of your life, every photo, every document, every file, but the people who love you remembered you wrongly, warmly, in 300 contradicting versions, which one would be the real you? The record or the memory? Tell me in the comments. I read all of them, and the best answers sometimes shape the next episode. Until next time, keep redrawing your map.